land use allowances, which the owner was aware of when he purchased this land. By allowing these lots to remain and by amending the bylaw to allow him to be in compliance, you are telling everyone else in the county that they can ignore the zoning policies of this county without any repercussion, and in fact have the county bend to their will. I do not believe this elected council wants to be seen as making decisions based on bullies who feel like their will is all that matters and that they can ignore the laws that are in place for good reason. You will be setting a precedent by making this land use change. I would ask council if there has been any contact with Alberta Environment to see if Skeleton Lake can in fact handle this additional pressure. I feel with the concerns that have plagued this lake these last 10 to 15 years that an environmental assessment should be done. This should not come as a cost to the taxpayer, but to be completed by the individual who is looking to change the land use bylaw before any consideration of this change occurs. Included in this assessment before consideration is what impacts these numerous lots would have by having a wetland assessment, wildlife assessment, biophysical assessment, stormwater management plan, environmental impact assessment. Besides the environmental issues I see with this development, there is concerns of those who have lived at the lake for years. I've seen huge increases in water traffic on weekends to such an extent that we no longer go out on the water in the afternoons because it often seems unsafe. The boat launch in Bondis is often congested with trucks and trailers of those who have lots off the lakeshore. Increasing those types of lots will result in some vehicle damage or confrontation due to the frustrations around the lake, around the launch, as we have already heard of encounters of this happening. If you choose to pass this amendment, there needs to be some considerations in this decision. What are you telling other individuals and companies about following the bylaws of this county? They can do whatever they want without repercussions, regardless of what the county says. That this particular individual is breaking the land use bylaw can continue to do as he wishes. What? Limit the stalls to 36 already there illegally. Okay, I will sell off portions of the land instead. Oh wait, this is already happening. What are county plans to ensure there is sufficient ingress and outgress in case of a fire or other emergency? What penalties will be asked from this individual to deter him from continuing to develop this land rather than any kind of fine? Maybe take down lots that are currently there to bring the land back into compliance. Thank you for your time and review my comments. And I request the county reject this proposal. I don't know if I told you who that was from. Cindy Witzel. Okay, good. See, I'm starting to lose my mind just a little bit. Cheryl and Jason Scobie. I'm writing this letter for myself and on behalf of my husband, Jason. We oppose the approval and development of 36 camp stalls at Skeleton Lake. We do not support the application for this land to be rezoned. We have been enjoying Skeleton Lake for over 15 years. Over the years, we have enjoyed the many activities that Skeleton Lake offers, from quadding or boating, golfing, and enjoying being part of the lake life. These activities have become more challenging to enjoy because of the increase in population and increase in and around the lake. The impacts to the environment, infrastructure, and safety has become a concern for our family. The main reason we do not want to see this development, there has been a steady decline in the water quality of the lake over the years. The health of the lake has to be addressed, and the environmental impact of adding more stress on the lake has to stop. The ecosystem of the lake needs to be protected, and as a community member for 15 plus years, I do not want us negatively affecting the health of the lake. This includes all wildlife that rely on the lakes as well. Secondly, the Summer Village of Bondis will need significant improvements to infrastructure and public services such as waste management and sewer and stormwater drainage to help accommodate the increase in population and mitigate any extra pressure. How will the government absorb these additional costs without increasing taxes? The increase in traffic causes a big concern. The roads are already busy with all the extra traffic, and there has to be a plan to maintain the roads in and around the lake. Thirdly, we have to be mindful of the safety of our community. With the increase in population, we need to feel safe for not only ourselves, but also our belongings. The community will need extra bylaw patrol, and the RCMP already stretched with resources. In conclusion, we cannot support the addition to any more development around the lake. We need to preserve what we have and look into ways to protect the environment for future generations to enjoy. Cindy Biglin. And it was also sent by Mike Biglin. I, the undersigned owners of property affected by the proposed redistricting, oppose the requested zoning change for the following reasons. This additional development at Skeleton Lake is pushing the limits of what the lake can handle, and as landowners, we are very concerned. We currently have the highest population density for recreational lake in Alberta. We are extremely concerned about the infrastructure, including fire and emergency services, waste and freshwater management, road and infrastructure services, environmental impact. There is only one way into the property through our residential areas within the Summer Village, Old Timers Drive and Bondis Drive, specifically Range Road 185. The additional traffic and safety of pedestrians, mostly children, are a major area of concern to us. Safety concerns in the event of evacuation due to emergencies such as wildfire. Environmental concerns regarding water level, fish habitat, and water quality. Where is the action plan to ensure it does not get worse with more traffic? This proposed rezoning will likely result in more applications for future development. There is a reason the current zone C4 does not allow for campgrounds. Additional development at the lake has not been encouraged. Recently, Shoreline requested additional space and stalls was rejected. As well, a few larger parcels of land that have come for sale, including the Boy Scout camp, were advised that rezoning to allow for residential or campground development would not be considered. Through the application of the rezone, it has been noted that they're currently operating a 36 stall RV campground, which is contradictory to the current zoning. And are there any penalties for the development that would be considered? We do not reward our children for breaking the rules. Why should this property owner be rewarded? Thank you for taking your time to review. We are concerned the additional development will seriously impact our already stressed community and lake. We are hopeful the rezoning is denied and penalties are enforced for already operating outside the current zoning. Dawn and Terry Hood, Harnhar Beach. With regards to the development of additional campsites at the location of the Boy Scouts camps, we are vehemently opposed to this. We built our home on the beautiful shore of Skeleton Lake 31 years ago. We reside here year round. We have witnessed many changes to the lake and to the land surrounding it over the years. Overdevelopment, overpopulation gradually increased and the effects were felt. We witnessed the severe distress in the lake was experiencing as a result of abuse by a town of Boyle and surrounding areas, drawing water from Skeleton Lake for far too many years. Over very recent years, we are now witnessing the drastic decline in the quality of the water in our lake. This is heart-wrenching to see the quality of the water in such a sad state. Many suggestions have been put forth regarding the opposition to further development in the form of large lake of campground. We agree. There is currently a blatant disrespect for the residential properties surrounding the lake, this being the multifamily or friends camping on one property. We are vehemently opposed to this new campground. The future life of our lake, sustainability is at stake. And this is CAO of Kim Bancroft, CAO on behalf of the Summer Village and Miwatha Beach Council. Summer Village and Miwatha Beach Council would like to go on record as being strongly opposed to the zoning change mentioned above for the following reasons. Population density. Skeleton Lake is already overdeveloped and has one of the highest population densities for a lake in Alberta. This is extremely taxing on all services such as fire and emergency services, waste management, waste and freshwater management, and road and infrastructure services. Water quality. Water quality in Skeleton Lake has already been on a steady decline. Blue-green algae advisories are coming more frequently than ever before. Athabasca County should be considering ways to improve the water quality rather than add further strain to it. If water quality continues to decline, this can have an effect on not only the lake, but property values for those owning property near the lake. Lake safety. Increasing the number of people on the lake will also increase the number of boats on the lake. This will provide more opportunity for accidents as the lake becomes more congested. Strain on Mewatha Beach infrastructure. The boat launch and beach located in Mewatha Beach are already overused by non-residents of Mewatha Beach. This causes strain on the budget of a small summer village already and will only increase as usage does. Current zoning. If campgrounds are not allowed by current zoning, why was the current campground being allowed to exist? Has anything been done to stop this illegal development? As well, other applicants interested in rezoning have been refused. Why is this one being considered? Also, if the number of campgrounds will be at the development officer's discretion, the number allowed could be very alarming. It is in everyone's best interest to keep the strain on Alberta lakes to a minimum. There's a lot of damage that cannot be undone once it is in place. The Summer Village of Mewatha Beach strongly urges the Athabasca County to reconsider this rezoning application. This is from the McGrath family, Mewatha Beach. And there's a list of 5 McGraths. We vote no to any change on the bylaw change to the Boy Scout camp. We have been advised that and are aware that changes are planned for the land that is on the east side of the lake that was once the Boy Scout camp. It has come to our attention that you are planning to change the bylaw from rec commercial to campground commercial. We are owners of lakefront and have been watching the misguided work that your offices have been undertaking on our lake. We are in absolute agreement that there should be no change to the land to the campground on this property. Our lake is over the normal amount of access and parcels that should be on a lake of this size. We have problem with overcrowding already and the existing campground on Bondas. There is no room for another huge property with trailers and boats overloading the ecosystem on the lake. We are all aware that they are off-site already and have numerous trailers parked and probably paying for sites on the property already. It does not matter that the lake parcel is a good size. It is not to be changed by anyone for personal gain on this lakefront. We already have a problem with people who do not follow Alberta environment guidelines and have built marinas and changed the landscape for their own use. Your council has already denied the other campgrounds in any growth due to the overcrowding on the lake. Your answer is clear that this should be denied no matter who the owners are and their ability to fight for this change. All requests should follow the same format on decision making. So if you denied others, then your answer is clear. No, no, no. All owners on the lake should be notified publicly and in writing of this significant change, and it is your responsibility to do so. We have received no notice. Do not make any change to this parcel or ability to add campground and lake access from this parcel of land. The damage to lakefront and water is going to be irreparable and will damage the use of the lake for anyone who already has property or owns a place on each shore.
Director, about how many do you have left?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Should take a break.
6.
Let's
7.
take till 35 minutes
Do you want me
after.
to finish this letter?
You hadn't started it. Oh.
No, this is the same
Oh,
one.
this is the same one. It just goes on. Okay, please do. Sorry, I thought you were changing to a new letter.
I'm still on the McGrath family,
Okay, my
almost done.
apologies. When that one's done, we'll take a break.
Gotcha. This owner is using his personal status to gain what he wants for change. He should be fined to the highest for the abuse to date for putting in trailers against the policy and the bylaws already in place. We want all councils surrounding the lake and summer villages to take into account and they should have a voting right on changes for land and bylaws that impacts the owners already on the lake. Do not allow a change to the bylaw and the designation that the land has already. The owner bought this property with this in place and should know that the change will impact all who already live on the lake. His personal monetary gain and the tax collected on the property should not have any impact on the decision that is made on this. The simple and logical answer to this situation is the same as in the past, that no large-scale development should be allowed on such a small lake with already impacted watershed and environmental problems already that have impacted the water and the land. If you denied the other campgrounds on the same reason, your answer is a clear no, denied. Get busy finding out what the change to the North Road is going to be done to clear the way for watershed and the spring and rainfalls to add to the water level. This also the responsibility of the County of Athabasca to ensure the continued quality of lake water and the Skeleton Lake actually continues to thrive. Alberta Environment has already agreed that the change should be made. What is the holdup now? Each year that you do nothing impacts the lake life and eventual demise. Please do not make changes that impact the environments in such a dangerous and misguided way.
Let's take 10 minutes so that everybody has a chance to do what they need to do, and we'll come back at 20 minutes before 6. Like to call the public hearing back from recess at 43 minutes past 5 and invite Director Wilkinson or Ms. Blair to continue reading the final stretch of our correspondence.
Okay. Kevin Pytel. I am writing this letter to oppose the proposed bylaw. I am a resident of the summer village of Mewatha Beach. Reason for my opposition are as per below. Currently, there are more than 1,000 lake adjacent lots. For lakes this size, 7.89 kilometers squared, this is an incredible number of lots and users. This taxes current lake infrastructure such as fire and emergency services, waste management, waste and freshwater management, road infrastructure services. Campground density in C5 is at the development officer's discretion. 36 is very small compared to the land size. What are the total potential impacts or maximum capacity? Oh, sorry, this same email was from Todd Welsh. The lake has been undergoing considerable environmental concerns regarding water level, fish habitat, and water quality. As the Skeleton Lake Sewership Association works with the county to mitigate these issues, they have been asked to provide a lot of technical data to support the issues and find solutions. Has the applicant for the rezone been asked to provide the similar technical data to ensure the lake can withstand the additional development on an already stressed lake? And the same list of technical data. Lake safety. The lake already has an excessive amount of boats and watercraft traffic. A campground will only increase the problem further. Additional development at the lake has not been encouraged. Recently, Shoreline looked for additional space and was rejected by their request by the county. As well, a few larger parcels of land have come for sale, including the Boy Scout camp. We're told that they couldn't, we're not allowed to rezone for residential or campground development would not be considered. How are they permitted to operate the existing 36 stalls if it's outside the current zoning? What is being done to stop this while the amendment is reviewed? Are there any penalties for the development that would be considered? For the record, I'm completely against the rezoning of the property for the campground use as mentioned in my letter. Stan and Judy Peranich. We are owners of Lake Lot at Summer Village of Bondus and are strongly opposed to the change of the land use bylaw. Our reasons are numerous. Skeleton Lake is already one of the most developed areas of Athabasca County for lake lots around the whole perimeter of the lake. The lake levels are slowly rising, but there are still issues of blue-green algae for the last couple of years. Activity in and around the lake with vehicles, quads, golf carts, snowmobiles, and watercraft are increasing each year, putting stress on roads, trails, and the lake with more garbage and pollution. The noise and heavy traffic moving constantly through the area for building and or renovating cabins or grading lots in the last 3 years are already an everyday occurrence. Long gone is the peaceful retreat, and the area is becoming mini cityscape lots instead of cottage country lots with bigger and faster adult recreation toys to go with. We have pelicans nesting in the lake area for the first time in the last 3 years. Close to the area slated for development is where the bald eagles come back to nest each year. Wildlife such as deer, moose, and bear reside in and around that area. More trees and natural vegetation will be demolished and never replaced. With so much attention to climate change, why would we want to add more stress to the Skeleton Lake and surrounding areas? Look outside the box of collecting more tax revenue for the county and see the whole picture of why not to approve this bylaw change. Trusting your good and wise judgment. Maureen Kowalchuk. Please do not change the C4 designation to C5 and allow more development on this property. Skeleton Lake area is overwhelmed with recreational use already and is suffering immense ecological damage. If ecological damage is not concerning enough, consider these infrastructure points. Currently, there are more than 1,000 lake adjacent lots. And then we talk about the sides of the lake again. This is coming from previous letters. So I'm just going to kind of try and summarize anything that's different from before. Traditionally, additional development of the lake has not been encouraged. We've talked about that. How are they permitted to, and asking about penalties. Thank you for the time to review and understand how additional development will impact the already stressed community and lake. Fran Carefoot. Current zoning C4 does not allow for campgrounds. Through the application of the rezone, it has been noted that they are currently operating a 36 stall RV campground, which is contradictory to the current zoning. If he is already operating contradictory to the current zoning, why should it be allowed to be rezoned? The lake has been undergoing considerable environmental concerns. Talks about water level, the stewardship, fish habitat. Has the applicant for the rezone been asked for the similar technical data? So that's another list of traffic impact, stormwater, all of those. On lake safety, many of us had concerns over the abundance of lake traffic. Increased density will increase the lake traffic on what is already a small lake. Any firsthand experience on lake congestion would be a valuable discussion point. Traditionally, additional development has not been encouraged. We've talked about that. How are they permitted to operate these existing stalls, and are there penalties for this development? Skeleton Lake Stewardship Association, Carrie Iwanek, President. Dear Athabasca Council, with regard to the proposed amendment to the land use bylaw, the Skeleton Lake Stewardship would like to comment against the proposal. The SLSA has been acting on behalf of the lake residents for several years to address concerns with the vulnerability of the lake water levels, water quality, and environmental impacts such as diminished fish habitats and algae growth. As we have worked through a number of issues over the years, we have gathered a significant amount of data through professional consultants as we try to remediate some of the aforementioned issues. One very concerning piece of information we learned is that Skeleton Lake has the highest density of lake adjacent properties versus surface area when compared to any other lake in Alberta. Increasing this density will further stress the environmental impacts we are already experiencing and working to remediate. Additional density will also tax basic infrastructure, fire services, waste management, freshwater, wastewater management. The density also poses a problem regarding lake congestion. Busy times on a relatively small surface area makes for some uncomfortable or unsafe days on an already busy body of water. As mentioned, SLSA has utilized a number of consultants over the years to gather data so we can provide solutions to the problems the lake experiences. It has been critical that we provide proof of problem and solution to Alberta Environment, County of Athabasca, and our stewardship. We are curious if the owner of the property for the land in question has provided any documentation with regard to the potential effects of a commercial campground and increased density. Some of the reports we would expect to see are traffic impact assessment, environmental impact assessment, wetland assessment, biophysical assessment, stormwater management plan. These are typical documents for development applications, and we would like to see any information that has been provided to compare with our own reports and consultant opinions as we work to improve lake quality. SLSA has gone to great expense to secure our documentation to validate our efforts. We would expect any other major developments that will impact the lake would need to provide the same level of diligence before any decisions were made. Another concern we have is with the administrative report to council. It mentions the existing 36 RV stalls, which would be in violation of the current zoning and land use. We certainly hope this LUB amendment isn't the simple solution to fixing identified problem and violation in lieu of some sort of penalty or action to stop the violating use. In review of the potential land use zone C5, we see that a total campground density is left to the discretion of the development officer. The landowners are currently operating 36 stalls, which, as noted, is already in violation of the LUB. Have any considerations been made to total density, potential numbers of stalls, as this is an amendment to, is considered? What is the total risk to the lake, the density increase? Without the total impact being identified, it would be hard to make a decision, especially with a property that is already acting in direct violation of the bylaw. In closing, we do not support the land use amendment. We feel there's a great risk to the lake stability, recreation use, congestion, environmental impact, and overall lake quality. As a stewardship association, we work to protect the environmental asset, and we do not see this aligning with any improvement or benefit to the numerous lake adjacent owners which we represent. The potential impact is clear and obvious. This proposed change will continue to stress an already strained lake environment, and we have seen no documentation that would show otherwise. Thank you for your consideration. Gina and Kevin Nickforic. It says property owners in Athabasca County. We are writing in opposition of the above mentioned LUB. As a ratepayer in the county, my family and I are extremely concerned by the proposal to allow an additional commercial campground on the lake that the county's municipal development plan has already identified as the highest population density amongst recreational lakes in Alberta. Further, the MDP indicates that development is to mitigate negative impacts on water quality and fish habitats. Have any reports or studies been submitted by the developer that address these issues? The MDP also refers to cooperate with other municipalities. The addition of commercial campground directly adjacent to Somerville or Bondus will have a direct impact on their infrastructure. Was Bondus consulted on this development proposal? The county's intermunicipal development plan states that redistricting must take into account safety and environmental concerns. By adding to the density of the lake, it will surely impact emergency services and roads, which will have a direct impact on safety. This does not take into account the safety concerns related to the addition of multiple boats to an already busy lake. In terms of environmental concerns, how will the development be handling wastewater from the campsites? In terms of fresh water, how will this be supplied to the development? Will wells be drilled? The IDP also states that redistricting may require supporting studies. And then there's a list of the studies we've heard repeatedly. For a development of this size, have these been requested of the developer? Council has been sent many studies on the health of the lake that were conducted by expert consultants, and I can't encourage you enough to please read them and be well informed on the health of the lake. Most frustrating is the way in which the county has allowed the development to proceed in violation of the LUB. It is our understanding that there are currently at least 36 stalls, 20 of which were approved and built prior to 2021. We also understand that the application for construction of another 16 stalls was declined in 2022. We are aware that the county was contacted in September 2021 and notified that the work has been done earlier in the year to add additional stalls without permits or permission from the county. Having been notified, did the county investigate the site and issue a stop work order or demand the work be undone? It seems very clear that in this case of the developer begging for forgiveness rather than asking for permission. This is an exceedingly poor way to conduct business and sets horrible precedent. We are also aware that Shoreline Campground applied to install additional lots and that was denied by council. Based on how old the old Boy Scout camp is being handled, that will prevent Shoreline from taking the same approach. What will prevent the owners of the old Boy Scout camp from doing the same thing again? Where will it stop? 50 stalls, 100 stalls? If this continues, what will prevent individual small landowners around the lake from taking the same approach? Please know that we love Skelton Lake. It is a place where we've built many happy memories with families and friends, and we want everyone around the lake to be able to do the same well into the future. It is our sincerest belief that additional density around the lake and allowing developers to run roughshod is a direct threat to the future. We trust that council also sees the significant and unique value that the lake holds and strongly urge you to not approve the proposed amendment. Thank you for your consideration. The last three, I'm gonna read there, these three are very similar, so I'm gonna read the first one and then I've have the other two that are highlighted with the differences. This first one is submitted by a whole bunch of people. It's signed the residents of Harnahar Beach, Matt Gibson, Patrick Gibson, Gladys Gibson. And these are typed out, they're not signatures, just so you know. Brett and Alexis Buck, Ben and Jody Beeching, Gordon, Judy Hare, Tom and Dorothy Bateman, Tim and Pearl Rogers, Mike Wywut and Rhonda Romaniuk, Bob and Annette Zielinski, Kyle and Janita Zielinski, Rick and Kathy Timmer, Luke Timmer, Bert and Betty Ann Harris, Perry Sador, Mike Alexandra, oh, I'm starting to struggle. Alexandruk, Jonathan and Jackie Alexandruk, Darren and Janice Parsons, Paul and Catherine Turzik, Ryan Michael Jewell, Darren Hardy, John and Barb Atkin, Fuzz and Rose Bazinet, Clarence and Donna Brzezicka. Oh my goodness. Greg and Gail Secord. I think this is everybody that lives at Harnahar. Okay, I'm going to read the letter now. We, the community of Harnahar Beach on Skeleton Lake, are writing you in response to the public hearing on the proposed bylaw, which is looking to redesignate. As members of Athabasca County and residents of Skeleton Lake, we have grave concerns about the proposed change to the current land use. There is also huge concern on deep impact that it may have on the delicate ecosystem of our lake. The Alberta Lake Management Lake Watch report presented in 2021 recorded high microsteen levels, which are toxin produced by bacteria, which when ingested can cause liver damage. In 2021, it already exceeded the recommended recreational level of 10 UGs per liter during July. The past two summers, which have followed this report, we have been under advisory about blue-green algae blooms. The last two summers, our lake was put under advisory in June, with this current season on June 22nd. While May recorded heat, this early trend of the lake is deeply concerning and reduces the ability for all residents to access and enjoy the lake. The lake and its water level continues to be in flux. In 2016, the water level was at its all-time low. And while it was up in 2020, it declined in 2021. While the land use redesignation does not have a direct impact on the water level, increased use and the pressures of an increase of commercial development could further increase the lake eutrophication. We have seen a decrease in the populations of both walleyes and pike populations. Skeleton Lake was previously assessed as moderate high risk in 2020. The 2022 assessment with a decline in abundance and moderately sized walleyes indicated decline in status to high risk. Considering the change in status, conservation-minded management remains necessary to ensure the sustainability of this population and fisheries. The pike population is no different. Since the 2010 assessment, the status of pike population has declined from low moderate to moderate high in 2020. The status from 2022 assessment has remained at a moderate high risk. The truncation of pike larger than 600 millimeters suggests high harvest pressure. Skeleton Lake remains one of the only non-tag and open fisheries in the region, which has resulted in increased boating traffic and poaching. Skeleton Lake walleye and pike fishing limits were changed by Alberta Fisheries 2 years ago. Without a management system or tag system, people who are not invested in lake community create pressure on fish populations. Introducing more commercial campgrounds will amplify this issue. We are a passionate community who take care of the ecosystem in which we are lucky to live in and play. We enjoy the fruits of the lake, fishing its waters, paddling along the shores, and watching our children grow up in its water. We have invested in the lake and take great responsibility for its health so that it can remain in place for our future families and grow and play as we have. By adding a commercial campground, we will only further upset the balance of the lake. The numbers speak for themselves. Our lake is already compromised. It needs time for population of fish to reestablish. It needs to decrease in nutrient levels. And we need time to ensure that the water levels remain stable. Moving forward with this bylaw compromises all of these things. In 2019, we came forward and asked the council to help our stewardship society with our lake refill project. This was not supported. Legislative comments. This area currently has at least 36 RV stalls on it. Our understanding is that only 20 were approved prior to 2021. There was an application made for an additional 16 in 2022. However, it was refused. I do know that some, if not all, of the additional lots were refused in 22 were actually installed in 2021. These lots were put in with no development permit and are in contravention of the land use bylaw as it relates to the uses in C4 district. The allowance for campgrounds as a discretionary use was removed from the C4 district in March of 2021 before the subject additional lots were installed. The county was notified of this activity in late summer of 2021 and should have issued a stop order. However, you did not. Question: why has the county not issued any stop orders, knowing full well the additional lots on the subject lands were not allowed or permitted through your LUB? Further, why was the owner not made to remove the additional lots that not only are not permitted, but contravene the LUB in the C4 district? It appears that the proposed bylaw is intended to accommodate the additional 16 lots in order to make the site legally conform to the current LUB. Of great importance to note is that the current intermunicipal development plan has this area land use identified as C4. Please see attached. We see no bylaw proposing to amend the IDP, and in order to amend the IDP, both the county and the Summer Village of Bondis must approve the amendment to the IDP. As outlined in the attached excerpt from your MDP, the IDPs are paramount over land use bylaws. Question: does not the IDP require amendment as well if this is to go forward? Further, your MDP speaks to lakeshore development in Section 8. In reviewing Section 8, it is noted that Skeleton Lake is identified as one of 5 major lakes and has already the highest population. It also states that development at the lakes is designated to mitigate negative impacts on water quality and riparian health. More development certainly does negatively impact water quality. Your MDP also identifies intermunicipal planning and cooperation, Section 16. The primary goal in this section states Athabasca County shall work with neighboring municipalities to promote compatible and complementary land use patterns and infrastructure. Question: has the county worked collaboratively with the Summer Village of Bondis on this proposal as part of the MDP intermunicipal planning principles? Environmental concerns. We would like to refer you once again to Section 3.41 of the IDP, which states that before considering any redistricting, safety and environmental concerns shall be considered. The boat traffic on this small lake is already extremely high. The proposed redistricting will only increase this traffic as more and more stall renters purchase boats, increasing the risks associated with high volumes of boats in this small lake. And 2, with more boats comes more docks and mooring. Additionally, the current health of the lake must be considered when reviewing this proposed redistricting and the land. This lake is already stressed because of overdevelopment, and the water quality has been an issue for several years. So too is the water levels of the lake. Question: has the safety and environment impacts being considered with this proposed redistricting? Regarding the concerned listed above, Section 3.44 of your IDP states at the time of redistricting, the county may require supporting studies and information to accompany the application in order to assess the suitability of the site to support the proposed development. And again, that list of requirements that we've talked about multiple times. Question, have any of the above listed studies been requested from the owner of the subject land? Fire concerns, what happens if there's a fire in the area? Can the existing entrance and road infrastructure ensure that all can evacuate? Continued population growth in this area should be a huge concern for the county. Question, can the county's fire apparatuses get into the area easily and safely if needed? Question, has any development permits been issued for this site in relation to campgrounds prior to March 9th, 2021? That being before campgrounds were removed from the C4 district. If so, were any of the above items taken into consideration when approving this discretionary use? We are asking the council to leave the land designation as is and have the grounds returned to the state they were in prior to the development of the additional campsites. Thank you for your consideration. The health of our lake depends on your decision. So the second one was submitted by Harold and Deb Hamilton, and I'm just going to highlight a few things that were different from that one. Have several acquaintances that have pulled their RVs into newly developed lots first thing in the spring of 2022 and are back again this year. They are not personal friends of the owner and pay a fair amount to rent the lots. This is not the right way of doing business as a government entity, and it certainly does not follow proper principles. Another concern, road use currently in order for the users of the additional 16 RV stalls to access the site, they must use Summer Village Abondis roads. While roads are for public use, should not the county have discussed the road use for this additional development with the Summer Village Abondis before considering any redistricting of the site? Section 3.41 of the IDP makes reference to when considering proposals for new commercial recreation redistricting, the approving authority shall consider, among other things, a proximity to major transportation route and compatibility with existing roads. The traffic on Summer Village roads is already extremely heavy. This development has and will continue to increase already extremely busy roads with not only vehicles, but more motor bikes, quads, and golf carts, causing enhanced safety risks and noise. Maybe Summer Village Abondis requires a road use agreement from the developer. Question, has the county discussed road use with the Summer Village Abondis when considering this redistricting? And an additional question, do these existing 36 lots conform to the regulations currently outlined in the C5 district? Our final concern is the precedent this will set. Will Shoreline now be seeking approval for additional RV sites? Will the owner of the subject lands be looking to install additional sites over and above 36? Or will we continue to see this done without any permits or regard for the rules and then come back and be required by the county to come back after the fact and try to make it right? Is allowing unapproved development to continue without issuing a stop order for any direct contraventions of the LUB now a county precedent, especially when you were made aware of the contravention before the specific process began? What message are you sending to your ratepayers? What message are you sending to other RV campground owners, not only around Skeleton Lake, but other lakes in this county? To go ahead and do what you want, then beg for forgiveness later? I don't think that is a precedent you wish to set. Use your legal authority through your LUB and the Municipal Government Act to enforce your land use policies. Council took a long time to develop these statutory documents in LUB. You set a vision for the current and future makeup of the county, and you want to work collaboratively with your neighboring municipalities. Do the right thing, enforce the rules and regulations you have already established instead of changing them for the rule breakers. Remember, everyone is watching what is going to happen here. I don't think that this can of worms you want to open. I wish to also encourage members of the council and planning department to take time to read the many studies that have been done on this lake. They have been provided to the county. On a personal note, we very much enjoy Skeleton Lake and plan on handing down our property to our children. They love the lake and so do our 5 grandchildren. We want the lake to be healthy and sustained well into the future, not only for our family, but for all residents and visitors around the lake in both Summer Villages and county. It is a gem. I believe the county considers it one of their gems as well. This means we all want to ensure it remains resilient, sustainable, and has healthy aquatic ecosystem. Additional density development will most definitely compromise this. Thank you for your time and attention to this most serious matter. And this is the last one. Again, similar to the last two, but I'll highlight some of the things that are a little different. Hearing for bylaw 005, land change from commercial. Oh, this is from, sorry. This is from Earl Secord, Heart and Heart Beach. About the hearing, I have several concerns over the possible addition of another campground. Council meeting, June 13th, 2023, agenda 6.1, administrative report as per item 2, discussion points in the administrative report dated June 13th. Paragraphs 3 and 4 clearly lay out issues with allowing this bylaw be passed. This area lays within Major Lakes area, thereby requiring that a study is performed as per the county's municipal development plan. In the proposed bylaw 026/2021, which was rejected, population density on and around the lake is a huge concern. Fire and emergency services, as well as county infrastructure, is as much or more of a concern. I do not believe that any of this has changed whatsoever. And if anything, it is even a greater concern than it was in 2021. Looking at the aerial photo, the land in green is to remain as it is. Yet it has already changed, has campsites within its boundaries. Is this not true? From the lake view, it certainly appears as though it does on both the north end of the property as well as the south end of the property. Skeleton Lake is currently overstressed as it is. Water quality has been an issue for several years, as has the water level of the lake. Many studies have been done, which have been provided to the county, that have shown that the lake cannot sustain any further growth. The lake cannot sustain additional development. Water safety on the water is also already a concern for paddlers, boaters, and swimmers alike. Additional development will only add to this. I have email trails dating September 2021, when county planning and development was made aware of the major changes occurring at the land location, which is now looking to change the zoning. These are to follow toward the end of this letter. Has the council taken into consideration any of the studies on the lake and area initiated by groups such as SLSA, who has spent a significant amount of money, most of which is donation of the residents around the lake, at all when considering the additional development? The shores of the land area in subject were once inhabited by the Pelicans, but over the last few years, due to the increase of trailers and campers on the north end of the property, they no longer reside there. There are several boats and personal watercraft that have added to the traffic on the lake, and there is most likely to be a much larger number if this change is approved. More docks and lifts along the shoreline, which I've been instructed to take up with environment, because the county is not responsible for the shoreline. Has anyone on council even looked at the physical state of the lake? Does anyone care? Sorry, this is not your jurisdiction, so perhaps no one cares, but should you? Here is something the county committed to. Comprehensive technical lake capacity study methodologies have been developed to ascertain the maximum shoreland development capacity, residential, recreational, institutional, that a lake can accommodate without negative impacts on the water quality, fish habitat, and recreational enjoyment. The county will seek to partner with the respective summer villages, relevant nonprofit associations, and interest groups, and the Alberta government to initiate such studies for the 5 major lakes. County's target is to initiate the studies during an 8-year period, 2016 to 2024. The county is scheduled to complete a recreation master plan in 2016. This plan will provide important background information for the comprehensive lake studies. That was the outcome of the intermunicipal development plan between the county, Bondus, and a third party. regarding future development in this area. Seems to me there was to be no more development based on the study performed. Has there been an environmental impact study as well as other impacts to the area performed by the county, landowner, or government? It is my understanding that this is a requirement prior to anything happening on this sort of development. If the owner of the land cared as much about the environment as he claims to, he would not have done what he has. Development of 36 sites, now requesting zoning designation change. That is absolute. No, I'm not going to say that word. If anything should be done, it is that the landowner should be made to put land back to the original state it was in prior to the development of the additional lots now in question. Upon reviewing the notes on the proposed bylaw change, I am questioning how it was able to get through first reading, since there was no permit issued for any of the development until after the completion of it all. The county planning and development was made aware of the development taking place mid to late August and early September of 2021. Both Sarah and Krista were made aware of the development at the time. Pretty disappointing to say the least. And then there's a long email chain from 2021 that I'm not sure I need to read in.
I don't think you do.
And then sort of a summary here at the end. I'll read. Please explain how this was allowed to get where it is today. How is rezoning the land commercial campground acceptable whatsoever? The county worked with the landowner to do what? Make it right? How is what was done right in any way? So it now meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Why was the development not stopped back in September of 2021 and application for development and rezoning done at the time? How does a major change like what has been done slide through when the county was made aware of what was happening? The county recently approved several development permits from this landowner. How many of these developments were already built without a permit? What is to stop the landowner from continuing to do so whatever he wants and then doing what the county development and planning group asks him to do afterwards to make it right? The property owner withdrew the application to build 40 RV sites in the past, but seems he decided to proceed anyway without permits or rezoning of the land. What the landowner has done, he did so with total lack of respect for residents of Skeleton Lake and the county of Athabasca, in my opinion. At least one of the current campers has been told that within the next 2 to 3 years, the landowner plans to have the land set up so they will be able to purchase the property that they are camping on outright from him. Sounds like he could be planning a subdivision to me, but hey, these are just rumors, or are they? The landowner should be given notice to have the land returned to the original state prior to the addition of the non-permitted campsites. Thank you for reading this letter and taking my concerns into consideration. I feel strongly against the development of another campground on this lake and area, which is already overdeveloped and overpopulated. I hope that you will also not accept this. There are studies which have been done and provided to Athabasca County that back this up.
Well, Director, I think you can take a well-deserved drink of water. Well,
Oh, I have one more thing to say.
I don't know if the crowd will let you, but let's go for it.
There were, just for your guys' information, there were 5 submissions that came after the deadline that will not be read into the record.
So before we begin with verbal presentations, there's a couple of reminders. Any person wishing to speak must identify themselves, or they will not be given the opportunity to speak. When you approach the mic, please also state your residence and how you deem yourself affected by this proposal. And that after you do that, the timer will start. Presentations are to be directed to the chair and not to the applicant or to other speakers. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes as outlined in our bylaw. There looks like on the list, I'm not sure if any of those folks have left, but a number of people who do want to speak to this. Please keep your remarks concise and relevant to the purpose of the hearing. And if you've made a written submission, I would ask you not to repeat what you've already written. Both council administration may ask questions of the speaker for clarification when you're done speaking, so just stay at the table. However, this is not an opportunity to ask to add new information or engage in debate except to the point of answering the question. So calling on persons wishing to speak, the bylaw asks or suggests we ask those speaking in favor first. Is there anyone speaking in favor of the bylaw? Mr. Nachi?
We are, but we're going to we will do our presentation at the conclusion.
The concluding comment? Okay. So then sorry, and your name is? Rick Tiedemann, please take the seat. Okay. So just so that everybody understands the process, the applicant has the ability to make a concluding comment. Mr. Tiedemann, if I've said that right?
Yes, thanks.
How are you affected?
I own a property out at Skeleton Lake. My mom and dad bought the second property on the lake over 70 years ago. I've been there for 64 years myself, and we have lakefront property. I'm actually part of the county, so I'm a ratepayer to the county.
Perfect. Please begin your presentation.
Thank you very much. I was one of the founding members of Skeleton Lake Stewardship Association about 15 years ago. And interestingly enough, it was a renter that actually became our president for many, many years and had the passion for the lake. I'm also involved with Alberta Lake Management Society, and we do testing of the water of the lake 4 times a year. We've already done it a few times this year. So I'm very intimate with the lake and was part of SALSA when we spent that $450,000 studying the lake. I probably know the watershed better than anybody else other than Peter, who's with me, because we spend a couple of hours every day moving water through the watershed and to maximize the flow into the lake to try to improve the quantity of the lake. I think there's 2 issues here. One is quantity and one is quality. Quantity has certainly been impacted by development around the lake. There's no question about it. And different sources to the lake have been severed and with some inappropriate development. So there is inappropriate development and appropriate development. So I don't think that the proposal here is going to affect quantity whatsoever. So I'm going to take that one off the table. Quality is a different issue. And we've talked a lot about quality today. And when I go back and I look at the Alberta Lake Management Society data that we collect year after year after year, we definitely cycle as a lake. And so this year, yeah, things kind of bloomed a little bit earlier than previous. But when I look at a lot of the water chemistry, it's no different than what we've seen historically. So that's part of being a prairie lake. The concerns I'd have about this development is there going to be more riparian area disruption? And people have alluded to that already. What about the boats? And the wake surfing boats are different than any of the other watercraft out there in terms of the impact that they have on shallow prairie lakes. There's no question about it. We need to look at that. And then also, will there be any nutrient loading on the land there? I don't think there will be. So whether there's going to be a quality impact, I've basically brought it down to, is there going to be a riparian area disruption and or how many more boats are going to be there? It's interesting, a lot of the letters that were read today, because I've been out at this lakes for so damn long and being involved with SALSA and stuff, I know a lot of the people that wrote those letters. But what I found interesting was the hypocrisy, because many of those people that wrote letters and expressed environmental concerns fertilize their lawns, destroy the riparian areas, and even some of them have had bobcats on the environmental reserves in front of their places. So you know what? I sit back and I kind of go, come on, people. Right? It's always easy to point fingers at other people when we don't take responsibility ourselves for what's going on around the lake. And when I was involved with SALSA doing a lot of the education, it was unbelievable the number of people that would come to me and say, Rick, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? How are we doing out at the lake? Right? As they went back and applied more fertilizer to their lawn and this type of thing. So this is a big issue, is a complex issue. When I look at the C4 versus C5 in terms of the permitted or discretionary uses, I almost go, maybe the whole dang thing should go to C5, right? That because when I look at what the uses are, the restrictions are much greater than what we get with C4. And I would almost say, I want the whole thing to be C4 with some really tight restrictions around future development. The other thing that I think that we really need to look at is the rest of the use around the lake. So if Shoreline does have 220 trailers with a license that I think is for 170, what's going on there? If I go through Miawatha, because I'm really close to Miawatha, how many lots there have 3 and 4 trailers on them, or have a primary residence and have 2 or 3 trailers on them when that's not permitted under the bylaws? And the same thing goes for the summer village of Bondis. So we have a lot of overuse issues. And I think before we hold somebody else accountable to a certain use standard, that we as residents need to take some ownership for what we're doing with our properties as well. So there's some issues there, but let's look at solutions because that's what we're really here to do today. Okay, the solutions are number one, bring shoreline into compliance, bring Miawatha and Bondus into compliance and enforce existing accommodation kind of development there. If we were to approve this proposal here, there'd have to be some serious restrictions with respect to any future help there. The county, you need to help us. So everybody has some ownership here. We've worked with SALSA and my partner Peter and I work every day to move water in the watershed. We need your help to remove some barriers to get more water there, because that will help with quality and quantity. And we need to start to enforce some riparian area disruption issues. One of the things that I think that they could do if this gets approved is take those boats and those docks out of the corner, the northeast corner, and move them all to the main pier so that they're away from those sensitive areas there. I think there's always options if we look hard enough for them. And I think we do need to implement some wake surfer boats protocols and behaviors on the lake, because that's a big new issue. And we are starting to eutrophie at an accelerated rate. When I worked with the hydrology group at the University of Alberta, Dr. Schindler and Dr. DeVito, they told us our lake was going to eutrophie at a much faster rate. And if certain behaviors were there, you could see it coming, and it's happening. It's really happening. I think we're at a tipping point, so we need to change. The ownership of the health of the lake, sorry, does
Rick,
not.
I'm gonna
cut us off, yeah.
We are gonna keep everybody to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
There is an opportunity right now, though, for questions. Are there any administration or council? Do you have any questions or points of clarification on items that Mr. Tiedemann has been speaking about? Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for being here.
You're
I
welcome.
have a question. with
Thanks for
regards-
staying as well. I think you're on personal time now. Yeah.
No, it's all good. Thank you. When you mentioned you're moving water in the watershed, a
Yep.
couple hours a day, what does that mean?
So a couple of things is we have lots of beaver, and I was just talking to your beaver boys just before we kind of came in here because they're helping us a lot. We've got way too many beavers. They're plugging up culverts and they're damming waterways constantly. We have two 48-inch culverts in the west end of the lake that the beavers will dam up twice a day. So we keep opening that up to keep the water moving. I hope the county appreciates that, because otherwise your road is going to wash out. Right. So maybe I should be invoicing you for that work and this type of thing. But yeah, so we're doing that. Also, we have landowner permission where the beavers are backing up water on their land and flooding their land. So we go in there, and what we do because I believe in stewardship, is we will cut out the first 2 feet of the dam at about 4 feet across, release some of the water. We don't want to take it all, because from a stewardship perspective, you don't want to enhance the aquatic ecosystem of the lake at the expense of another aquatic ecosystem, because the wildlife needs that back there. But there's a lot of water being held back in different areas because of the beavers right now. So we just want to share it. And so that's what we do. And we always have landowner permission to be on their land to do the work.
Okay, thank you very much for that
You're welcome.
explanation. I appreciate it.
You're welcome,
Thank
Tracy.
you. Councillor Walk.
When you speak about the boat restriction, is that an about Alberta Environment, or who regulates that?
Yeah, so it's happening at different lakes. I know that Island Lake has been talking about the wake surfer boats. And when I look at different jurisdictions in Canada and in the United States, a lot of times it does become a federal or provincial issue because you're on Her Majesty's waters and this type of thing. But also lake communities have got together that, because now the interesting thing out at Skeleton Lake is you've got 2 summer villages and then you've got the county. But if we collectively came together and developed a will to kind of say, we're going to look after this lake better, we could do something. My sister and her brother have a place in Rosen Lake near Fernie, BC, and it's the lake community that put the rules in place, and they all make sure that their visitors abide by it as well. And they've got no boats on the lake before 10 a.m. After 9 p.m. It's a small lake. If on odd days you water ski and pull your boats clockwise, the other days you do it counterclockwise, and there's a fishing area and none of the ski boats go close to it. And it works for them because they've all agreed to it because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Council, other questions? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. When you're talking about the work you do for the watershed.
Yep.
Each day, is that in conjunction with SALSA, or is that with another local conservation group?
No, it's just myself
Just
and
yourself?
Peter over here. Being on SALSA, to be honest with you, I got frustrated with the bureaucracy and all the barriers when we wanted to do a good thing, Ashton. and this type of thing. And so now I've just worked with the local landowners that I've known, because I know so many of them haven't been out there for so long. And they say, yeah, come on our land and you can help us to move the water and mitigate some of the beaver impacts. And so that's what we do. So we do it because it's a legacy project, Ashton.
Wonderful.
Like that. My grandkids are 4th generation out there. I'm doing it for the 6th generation. Right. And we need to get this done, and we need to get 2 more feet of water in that lake before we hit our sill level and it starts to leave the lake. I think a couple letters mentioned the fact that it is a slough. So by definition, it is a slough because we haven't had water leave that lake since 1997. When I was a kid growing up there, water was leaving at, if you know the lake where Weir's place is down there, going to Amos Lake, it left every year, literally, this kind of stuff. So yeah, we got a dream, right? We're not ready to give up yet.
Thank you.
Councillor Min, sorry.
Working with watershed councils, have you ever thought of installing beaver pond levelers
Yes.
instead of going there every day and trying to?
Yes.
Councillor Min, I'm going to ask you to connect with him after the meeting on that, because that.
The
as much
answer
as we
is
believe
yes,
it's a
Rob.
Brilliant project. I'm going to
I've-
steer us back to the topic at hand, otherwise.
I've got the design, Rob, but I need to work with the county because these big culverts are right
problems.
on the county. So
Council,
Let's connect,
other
Rob.
questions? Thank you.
you're
for
welcome.
Sharing with us today.
Thanks for staying.
Is there anybody else speaking in favor of this at the moment? Okay, moving on to folks who want to speak in opposition. Starting, I think, probably just at the top of the list. We will ask Lawrence Habiak, councillor for the Summer Village of Bondis. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. Can you just clarify why you're affected?
Yeah, my name's Lawrence Habiak. I've been a resident of Summer Village of Bondis. I was recently added to councillor. Basically, it does affect us. In me, in general, I live by the boat launch, and I've seen the stuff that's going on by the boat launch area. That's my biggest concern. My other concern is the fact that we have one road. We have 3 county roads that come into Summer Village of Bondis, which end up being one road that goes along the north side of the lake there. And we have, I don't know the exact numbers, but there's probably about 50 or 60 residents in there that should there be a forest fire, we have no way out. And when you add another 35, 40 lots at plus whatever he has, Mr. Brown has it in the residence, we could be looking at another 100 people or better that will have no way out should there be a forest fire. So that's basically my big concern, is the fact that we have very little road system in there. Bondis knows that we have an issue as it is with, but we don't have a solution because we don't own the land around it. So we're open up to working with the county and stuff like that, and possibly adding in another road into the north end of the lake there. But that's basically my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Council or administration, do you have questions for Councillor Habiak? Councillor Holland, floor is yours.
Thank you. Being in the Summer Village of Bondis, do they have an emergency plan, emergency evacuation, master plan, any of those things in play?
Right at the moment, we are partnered with the Boyle Fire Department but yes, no, we don't have an actual Bondis fire plan.
Okay,
But like I said, it's something that we need to work on as well.
great.
So,
Yeah, and as neighbors, I would love to see that happen.
well, yes, it would be nice to, for us, everybody to sit down and work, and there are a lot of solutions or possible solutions. Just a matter of figuring out what they are and stuff. So,
Well, thank you so much. I look forward
Thank
to
you.
working together.
So I had a question. How is the CAO of the Summer Village of Bondis connected to SLSA, given that can you clarify that relationship, given that he's been sending and forwarding, circulating SLSA material in advance of this? Are they one and the same? Are they working together, or?
I'm not 100% sure. I can't speak for Ed, but I think I'm hoping that he's been authorized to forward SLSA material as well. So, but I don't know if I think he's on the as a member, but I don't know if he's, what the story is on that. So
And not to put you on the spot too much, Counselor, but you've spoken against the bylaw. Can you clarify for us if you also speak out against and oppose a development in the Summer Village with the same fervor? There's a lot of development going on in the village and
most of the development in the village is basically replacing homes that have been, 500 square foot homes that have been there for 40, 50 years. Yes, I agree. There is, we have our problems with with people developing, and we do try to discourage some of it, but unfortunately, yeah, we are in the same problem or in the same boat as you guys. There's only certain things you can do, and there's only certain things that we can do. So
Counselor Anderson has a question and the floor is hers.
Thank you. I know that the Skeleton Lake Golf Course is a real favorite spot of some of my friends in the area who don't live within the Summer Village. And I'm wondering if you've ever done a traffic impact assessment on the traffic coming through your Summer Village to access the golf course, just so we could compare to how that would affect compared to the traffic accessing this property.
I don't believe there's been an actual assessment done, and that's probably something that we should be looking at to find out how many people are using the golf course. I know we have a lot of residents that are members of the golf course. A lot of it is just golf courts or golf cart traffic. But I don't know how many people are actually coming in from outside, like from Boyle or Caslan or wherever they might be coming from. I don't have that information, but I don't believe there was an assessment done yet. So.
And Counselor Wallach has a question for you.
Along the same lines, you guys say that the boat launch is severely impacted. Do you guys have numbers on who is using it for residents versus non-residents?
Right at the moment, it's a public boat launch. Our big issue is the fact that we only have about 15 parking sites, maybe a couple more beyond that. Unfortunately, we have people now that those sites get filled up. And unfortunately, people do not park properly, so they're taking up 2 or 3 sites. We've had people that come in sideways rather than angle into the way they're supposed to be. And because of that, we only have so many sites. Everybody is now parking, on the long weekend, especially. They come out and they park on the park area. In the past, we've had kids playing soccer and stuff like that, and vehicles with trailers driving around on the park area. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yep, I think a follow-up.
I guess what steps is Bondas taking to mitigate those?
Right at the moment, we're not doing anything, but we're gonna have to look at areas, possibly a user fee. We have to the maintenance of that boat launch area. It's something that is of concern to residents. We had people that went around with the petition letter saying that, of asking people if they wanted to sign, and a lot of the comments was the fact that the boat launch is way overused and we have to do something. And so I guess we'll have to look at, whether it be a gated thing or a user fee or an honor system. But we've tried in the past to ask people to take their vehicles back to their campsite, whether it be a property. We get some people from Shoreline, because Shoreline doesn't have much of a boat launch. Miawatha has very little of a boat launch. They've only got, I think, 3 or 4 parking sites over there. And one of the letters said that, actually it was one of my wife's, and the nearest community or county boat launch is probably 10 or 12 kilometers away, because you've got to go all the way around to the northwest corner of the lake. So ours becomes the most popular one.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, and congratulations on your recent election. I think you were elected this spring, if I'm remembering that right. And I know that
I don't know if it's congratulations in order. all the headaches.
But I think we do look forward to working with you in that context as well.
Thank you.
The next speaker on the list is Deb Hamilton.
Hi, I wasn't sure if you were gonna be reading all the many submissions and mine was read. Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask if you're the same Deb Hamilton that just did a large development permit on expanding a cabin at the lake as well?
It's not a large one, it's 25.
Okay, same person though?
Yes.
Okay, next person on the list, so I'm gonna say is that's you. Please join us at the table. Thanks for being here and waiting. You get a better chair for a few minutes.
Yes, I was. Everybody does. Hi, I'm Dragisha Peich. That's how you pronounce it, but Dragi's fine. I live at 430 Spruce Ave in the Summer Village of Bondas. It directly affects me with the growth of the amount of people that are coming there. I had a whole spiel, but pretty much every letter has said that. What I don't like now is the fencing that's going on, where we're asking Bondas of these questions. So when we challenge Bondas on what have we done about making sure people don't do this and people don't do that, that's a perfect reason why to pause, make sure we get our stuff together, because we've already been a developed society, or a developed area, and not permit an additional development to come in and continue to make the mistakes that we possibly make. So let us fix what's going on before we start approving. The other thing is, I don't understand, my statements became more questions. How do we get answers to, did he overdevelop? What are we doing about it? Are we penalizing? Is there any kind of public records that come out that say these are the decisions that we're making? I mean, when I read this, I look at the picture that was provided of the aerial view does not represent what that site looks like today. So it's a misrepresentation in here to say that that's what that site looks like. There is an additional beach that went in. The southernmost beach has been extended. We do have bald eagles nesting there. There's 2 sites. I have some pictures from way back when they were there. Like, do we continue to let this person expand as well as take time to fix what we need to fix as a group in Bondas? I do look at Bondas and I hear about the things that we do, and we're a very responsible community that raises our own money to do studies. So we say one thing, where is the formal studies coming back from that individual development saying, no, we contradict it? You know what I mean? I just can't have one individual who comes up and says that they've been doing that on a daily basis. And I do admire the individual for doing that and taking care of it. But where's the proof? Where's the professional study? Where I can't take the word of that one person, especially when he's in conflict with Salsa, who did raise the money to do the extensive study on that. So where do we draw these lines? That's all I'm trying to do, is get some answers to questions. I understand progress. It's the only way we develop as a country, as develop as Alberta, as a province, as we need progress, but we've got to do it more responsibly, and we can't just be null and void going out and giving permits to everybody that comes along the lake because they want to do something, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Council or admin, do you have any follow-up questions for
Draghi?
It's
fine.
Seeing none. Thank you for making the trip
Thank you.
and for spending the day with us, which I think by now my count we're 6 hours and a bit.
Sure. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Wayne Germain, do you wish to speak? Please join us. Probably the best chair you've had in hours.
My first chair. Before you start my clock, I just want to give a point of information. The letter from the residents at Harnahan Bay. Each individual was emailed the letter. They were asked to either edit, add, or delete whatever they approved or didn't approve. And then they're asked to send their approval back. So everyone on that letter gave their permission. And
That's
it was
okay.
our assumption that a name on the list was like.
I don't think there was any question of that. So
Okay.
you're affected because you're at Harhana Beach and it impacts the lake.
Right.
Okay, let's go ahead.
We start. Well, I got thrown for a little loop because I didn't realize that if my neighbor does something bad, I can do it too. Because they're already doing it, so I just fall in a line. And that's basically the message the first speaker gave us. You do something bad, I'll do it. We're all fine. But population facts, I was trained to deal with facts. The fact is that Skeleton Lake has a mid-range footprint based on the major lakes. They are 8.7 square kilometers. North Buck is 20.4 square kilometers. They have, I should read my notes, but they're not even half of the population of Skeleton Lake. Skeleton Lake has 18 to 2,000 properties, and the lake footprint is 8.7 kilometers. By far, sorry to use the phrase, but we blow all the other lakes out of the water based on population. They don't compare. 5 minutes isn't enough. We've been on this trail since March of 2021. We received a rumor that there was development going on in the Boy Scout camp. So fact, we went to check. We found out the power supply to the property had been greatly enhanced and that a trench had been dug and the power line had been put through the trench. In March of that latter part of that year, there was a public meeting much like this. And during that meeting, the question was asked, what's going on at the Boy Scout camp? Krista, you said, I don't know, but I will investigate. So based on that, we have to believe that there was not a permit in place. So this all started with a permit. Through the emails that we've been passing back and forth, we get the impression that it has been worked so that the landlord has become compliant. In other words, you've heard this expression, tail wagging the dog. Well, council has made the landlord compliant by making sure that the T's and are crossed and the I's are dotted. And so we get to the point of now we're being asked to do another step. In other words, I've already developed it to this point, but Athabasca's bylaws don't allow me to get to that point. So what do? I come back to council and say, come on, just pass this bylaw and make me compliant. And I think it's been alluded to is when you have somebody who believes that they can break the rules, when are they going to stop? Like, what is enough? Is 36 enough? Is it 50? And why? The motivation I was taught, you try and figure out what the motivation is. And it's very easy to understand. Number one motivation for most of us is money. So where's the money in all this? Because I have it from a reliable source that the benefit to council or county of Athabasca is very small by passing this bylaw. The unwritten is the benefit to the landowner is huge. So now I built beyond. Now I got the council to agree to let me do that after the fact. And then let's see what happens next. Maybe I can do more. But the motivation has to be the money. How do I get my money back? And we heard a rumor that one of the lot owners was told that in 2 years' time, they can buy their lot. So that's a rumor, not a fact. But that should put a little bit of fear into what's going on here. And that might speak to what the motivation is. Other than that, I would like to say that all of you have had a lot of information sent to you. You're all working on information overload. I would ask that you take the last 3 letters that got shuffled to the bottom of the pile and take a moment tomorrow when you're fresh and reread them. you may find that there's some good insight in there. I got 13 seconds.
You're ahead. Administration or council, do you have any follow-up questions for Mr. Jermaine? Okay. Thank you again for being here and for speaking concisely and directly, and
No problem.
I'm glad you're here. I have Heather Karp. Is Heather still here? I'm thinking not. I don't know, Heather. That was a perhaps. That is all the speakers, with the exception of the applicant has an opportunity to make a closing statement. Does council or administration have any further points of clarification you want to ask before we move to that portion of the meeting? Seeing no hands going up, it would be in order for the applicant to make a closing statement.
I'm good after.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for all spending so much time with us today. I just want to make a couple of points. And I've only made a few copies of this. I'd just like to pass it around so council can see. I'm just going to refer to a couple of things.
Actually, I'm going to just get you to give that to Director Wilkinson.
I was just going to refer you to a thing that you've received, all received it last year, but it's just this to reiterate the environmental impact. And all it is
Point of order.
Just one second. Go ahead, Councilor Cromwell.
Just following our policy, please introduce yourself
Sure.
and then follow what the REIT is trying to say.
Okay, my name is James Brown and I'm the owner of the numbered company that owns the land.
Can we take Director Wilkinson? We can take written presentations
Sure, I've
in,
got a few.
oral or written, so yes, that's okay, right? The way the bylaw reads.
Yeah. 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 There's one more copy. I was just going to point out where the
Yep, it's
sites are to emphasize that we're not taking a lot of the land, like we're not.
You and I can share.
First of all, I want. On this map, I just want to point out where the development is. The highlighted areas in yellow. You can see near the top of the map, it says ABC.
Yes.
Those were the areas the scouts had for camping. So the only thing we did after we were issued a permit in January 2020 as we were issued a permit to operate as a private camp with 20 sites. And that was mostly in the south end of the property. So that's when we built our shop. We were issued a permit for the shop and having 20 sites to operate as a private camp. When COVID hit, the pressure on people to do staycation vacations, they weren't traveling. The demand for campsites skyrocketed. So a lot of people contacted me and there was no power up there in the north end where it says ABC. And I thought all we could do to get more sites was to run power to those sites. And that's what we did. So I was going beyond the permit. The permit I had to operate as a private camp said to have 20 RV sites. And that was sort of in the south half of the property. So I ran power up to those sites, didn't create any new areas, just ABC, and then put a total of 17 sites in those 3 areas. So all I did was provide power and water to existing campsites. I didn't do anything other than service those sites that the scouts had used for camping. And that's what this is all about here today. So then I had more than 20 RV sites, which I had got a permit for from the county for 20 RV sites as a private camp. So then they changed the bylaw. They took campground out as a discretionary use in our area. Normally, I could have just applied for it. I didn't even know, get notice that they were changing it. So in March of 2021, county changed and took campground out as discretionary use. And then a couple of months later, that spring, the county showed up to look at the property and came along and said, oh, you're a campground. Well, that was fine, but then I was non-compliant. So the only way I can become compliant with the bylaw, I tried to oppose becoming a campground, as you all know. We went through several appeals last year. I didn't want to become a campground. But I have to become a compliant now. I have no choice. And so this brings us to today. But in terms of a lot of what was mentioned today was environmental things. So the only thing I have done was run power, service those 3 camping areas. And if you look at the next page, that's what the property looked like before I did anything. It looks like that today. Nothing has changed. The rest of the site, when you drive onto the property, this is what you see. And if anybody was going to develop a campground to make money, as the fellow maybe alleged, you wouldn't do what I did. It cost me a fortune to do directional drilling to get power up there so it wouldn't damage the terrain. And I could have done 100 sites down in the southern half of the property where all the open land is. I had to do directional drilling to get the power up there without bringing a cat in and creating a line and a trench. And so that's what we're here about today. And it's quite ironic. Sort of enjoyed all the salsa comments, all the original, and I attached a sheet. Here's the original meetings we had with Salsa, Labor Day at the Lake by Brian Curiel. He's dead now, but 400 people. We all used to meet at my property for Labor Day at the Lake Salsa, and I was one of the largest contributors to Salsa. So it's sort of ironic that we're here today. But Salsa sort of went inactive after Brian died. And one of the other fellows that was at Shoreline, he left. One of the people that started Salsa went inactive, but now they're active again, which is great. And I'm always interested in participating in all of these things. I contacted the mayor of Bonda after the last election and invited people to come out and see what was there, see what I was doing. Not one person will come out, not one person. And
I'm going to get you just to wrap up your final comment, and then we'll let, and the appellant isn't under the same time restriction. They do get a final.
I'm basically done, but I'd recommended that the best thing that they can do for the lake is do a sewer system for the village of Bondas. And I offered to pay for the feasibility study to see how much it would cost. Nobody's taken me up on anything. So anyway.
Thank you. You're welcome to sit at the table with there if you'd like.
Those are my comments.
Thank you for that. Is there any questions or points of clarification from council or administration from Mr. Brown? Councillor Holland, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your presentation and for being here. I guess I'm a bit confused because you mentioned that you were originally C4, you had your 20 sites.
Right.
COVID came, you decided to go outside of your permits.
Right, and create more sites.
And create more
Run power
sites.
to existing sites.
Right.
I didn't create
To
any more
existing
site
sites.
areas.
But those sites were not, as far as I understand, you had 20 sites already in
I
play?
had 20 sites already.
Right, and that's what your permit was required
Yeah,
you to have was
that's
20 and
correct.
no more. But you decided to run power, add more sites outside of the permit, is that
I
accurate?
decided to service
That
those
was-
existing campsites. Yes.
Okay, and you mentioned that the zoning changed from C4 to C5, however, C4 still allows for private camps.
It still does.
Yes.
And
which-
I thought I thought campground was discretionary, but they'd taken it out without my knowledge. They never gave us notice when they did it. And we were the only ones affected. Nobody else in the area is affected. In fact, we had the only private camp in the county. There are no other private camps. I was informed by the county.
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to establish the fact that it was C4, you had your 20 sites and you decided to go outside the permit. So I just was, that's all.
Right, I was offside, putting more sites in during COVID.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Are there any further questions from council or follow-up from it? Seeing none? Is it Noyce or Nachi?
Noche,
Noche, okay,
thank you. And
the floor is yours.
thank you. And for the record, it's Robert Noche. I'm legal counsel to the landowner. So for council today, the application before you today is simply a rezoning application, changing the land designation from C4 to C5. And from a planning perspective and the number of concerns that were raised by the residents that you heard today and in the numerous letters, there's a real concern with overdevelopment. But when you look at the current zoning, if you look at the current zoning of C4, there are some 19 permitted uses on that site. They can build on that site today a hotel or motel. They can build restaurants, retail stores, guest ranches, country inns, a bed and breakfast establishments. And because those are all permitted uses, if they apply for that permit and they comply with the regulations under your land use bylaw, that permit is issued by right. No one will have a say in that. Absolutely no one at all. So if this doesn't happen, the 19 possible permitted uses are available to the landowner. And any of the adjacent property owners and adjacent municipalities will have no say. In addition to that, there are 17 discretionary uses under a C4 zoning. Everything from gun ranges to private camps, to private clubs, to a service station, to a solar farm, to bars and pubs. Now, discretionary uses allow adjacent property owners a say in that, and it may or may not be allowed, and it may or may not be permitted if it ultimately gets to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board. But the point is, under the C4 zoning, there is close to 36 possible uses for this site. And if I'm a resident and concerned about development, and I would welcome a C5 zoning, because there are no permitted uses in the C5 zoning. Nothing at all. And there are only 2 discretionary uses in a C5 zoning. And because they are discretionary, the permitted for any further development, whether they want to increase the size of the campground, there's no guarantee you will get your permit. More importantly, is that people will have a say in that to either oppose it and appeal it to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board. So if I'm a resident, buy this particular parcel of land and had the option of a C4 zoning or a C5 zoning, I would be running to County Hall here begging you to choose C5. You've eliminated by the simple rezoning from C4 to C5, you will eliminate some 34 possible uses that the residents are very concerned about overdevelopment. And more importantly, you will eliminate 19 uses that if you fully comply with the regulations would be given, the permit would be given by right. In law, you must issue that permit. Your development officer would have no discretion at all. So if by chance the current zoning, they want to build guest ranches, a hotel, a 200 suite hotel on the site, it would be permitted. So be careful what you ask for. I appreciate there's a lot of misinformation here in terms of what has happened or what hasn't happened. Now, there's also this tremendous comments from owners of residents about how this landowner did not comply with the law. The fact is that up until 2021, campgrounds were permitted. Up until that point, though, the permit he had was under the private camp development. So there was nothing.
I'm sorry, but I am the chair of the meeting and I've been very clear that the applicant gets a closing statement that is not bound by the time zone.
So let me conclude, because obviously someone in the audience is very concerned about my time. Let me conclude by saying this, to members of council. From a planning perspective, the change of zone will provide all landowners, the residents of the county and surrounding, with the best control in terms of minimizing future development of that site. Secondly, because campgrounds is a discretionary use, there is no guarantee that a permit will ever be issued for future development. And thirdly, if a permit is in fact issued, the residents will have an opportunity to appeal that decision to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board and have their say in the permit. And the nice thing as well about the process is that when development permits are issued, the development officer will have that opportunity to impose conditions to ensure that the impact of the development is not felt by resident of owners. So members of council, I ask you, what you heard today would clearly indicate to you as an elected body that moving from C4 to C5 is the right thing to do from a planning consideration, because you will have eliminated some 30+ uses from the list of possible developments on this site to just 2 that are both discretionary. So members of council, subject to any questions, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize for the interruption. I mean, we've heard 4 hours of objections. I don't think 10 minutes worth of speaking from the applicant is unreasonable.
Thank you.
Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation, your words and helping to explain what's going on. But however, are you aware that it's not a complete rezone?
Yes.
That-
Yes.
Okay, so C4 would still remain
Correct.
in.
And parts of the lands. Correct.
Right. So
Correct.
I'm a little bit confused about your argument when you mentioned that, oh, we should go C5 when C4 is still existing. So still leaves those 36 uses available.
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
but a couple things. Number one, what is before you today is obviously something that the administration of the county and the landowner all ultimately were comfortable with presenting today. So that's number one. Number two, we will have eliminated almost close to half of the lands from a C4 designation. So you're right. So the opportunity for C4 development still exists in some parts of the land, but a greater portion of the lands now will move to C5. And what it also does, obviously, too, it minimizes, if there are C4 opportunities there, it minimizes those opportunities even further because the lands are now less.
I appreciate what you're saying. However, I beg to differ just because of the.
I'm sorry,
map.
Councillor
Yeah.
Holland, it's not a debate.
No, just mention.
No, I appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Is there any other questions from council? I know it's been a long day. So questions on clarification? If none, which I see none. Thank you for the
Thank you very much.
presentation.
Thank
It's
you.
clear. Does, at this time, does council have any additional questions of any speaker or staff? Is there anyone in the room that does anyone feel that they have not been fairly heard? There being no further testimony, I'll close the public hearing and council can receive no further information on this matter at the close of the hearing. The matter will be considered as part of the July 27th, 2023 council agenda. And I want to thank you for attending the public hearing, for your patience of a long day, and declare the public hearing closed at 12 minutes after 7 p.m. We will take a 15-minute break and then reconvene as council. All right. I'm going to reconvene the meeting at 25 minutes after 7. This is going to be a record for our council that I hope we don't ever repeat. Just saying, I've just lost my pen. So looking to the cover page, we are at items 7.3 and 7.4. Councillor at
Mr. Reeve, did we have a motion to?
come out of, well, we closed the public hearing. We'll take a motion to reconvene the council meeting from Councillor Kapitanek. On the motion to reconvene the regular meeting of Athabasca County Council, all those in favor, the vote is 8-0, and that is adopted. Regarding items 7.3 and 7.4, Councillor Anderson, you have a motion.
I move to table items 7.3 and 7.4 to the next county council meeting.
Councillor Anderson has moved that item 7.3 and 7.4, which is bylaw 007-2023 and 005-2023, be tabled until the next regular county council meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion to table those two bylaws to the next council meeting, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that is 7-1. And the motion is adopted. Good thing we didn't need that unanimously. We are now at item number 8.5, the Regional Emergency Response Plan. From a point of interest, that is an item that we could table to the next meeting, but Councillor Holland, you put it on the agenda. Do you want to?
I just actually had a quick question and
Okay,
then,
let's-
which may
Let's
result
address
in-
it and then maybe we'll just pass it.
in a motion. Yeah, I'm just curious about the emergency plan. And again, thanks very much for all the hard work that's gone into that and everybody who works diligently to make it happen. Will the emergency plan be distributed to each of the fire halls? So it's readily available to all the members, and will the members be asked to read it, understand it, and sign off that they have?
Mr. Reeve,
I'll let the
please,
Dem answer that. Yeah.
pardon me?
I said that's a question for the Dem.
Yes, and he happens to be sitting right here. So not only will it be distributed to all the fire halls, it'll be distributed to a wide number of agencies that's listed in the plan. So the school divisions, the hospital, our partner municipalities. So most definitely, it will be distributed widely now that we've approved it. The town of Athabasca has approved it, and I believe the village of Boyle have approved it as our regional partners. As far as the second part of the question, we will encourage everyone who receives a copy of the plan to read it and be familiar with it. But I can't guarantee that everybody will read it and be fully knowledgeable about it. But we will use the strongest language possible to encourage them without putting penalties in there.
Okay, there is is anyone willing to move the motion to adopt the Regional Emergency Response Plan as presented? Chair of the committee. Councillor Anderson has made a motion to approve the Regional Emergency Response Plan as presented. So in the form of the discussion, Councillor Holland, does the CAO's response satisfy your curiosity?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. But I would strongly suggest that we do have an understanding sign off sheet from those who have read it.
Okay, any further comments or discussion on this item? Seeing none, this is going to be, there'll be lots get done. We don't talk. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve the Regional Emergency Response Plan as presented, all those in favor? That is 8-0, and the motion is adopted. Moving on to item number 8.9, Trans-Canada Trail signage. That is on the agenda. Where is that in here? I think. Yep. Floor is open, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I had a question about this one. I noticed in the RFD, it mentions that the sign posts have been purchased from the Trans-Canada Trail Care Grant. And But it didn't mention who's paying for the actual signage. And then the financial part was left blank. So I was just wondering, do we have a quote for the signage? And if so, where will those funds come from?
Okay, thank you for your question. I'm sorry I didn't make it very clear. In the background, the signage from Trans-Canada Trail is provided through them. So we identify the need and provide the waypoint, and they will provide the sign.
So there isn't a motion on the floor, but I think the discussion first in this case, because there are a couple of questions and it's best to have a bit of a conversation so we don't choose something. Councillor Wallach, your hand is up.
So I guess is the intent to have county staff go to put these signs up, or the volunteers that are part of the trail committee?
It would be ideal in the historical, when it comes to signs, the history shows that the Public Works does the install of them. They're provided to the county, and Public Works does the install. However, if council feels that that is too big of an ask of the county to install those signs, then we would look at volunteers to do that.
So there is a recommended motion. Is anybody willing to move a motion? Councillor Holland, you'd like to move the recommended motion? Councillor Holland has made a motion to approve the installation Trans-Canada Trail directional signs in the hamlet of Collinton as presented, with line locates and installation completed by the county using supplied materials. CAO, did you have a comment?
I do, Mr. Reeve, members council. This fits with pillar 1 of your strategic plan, strengthening our economy under goal number 4, increasing tourism. And certainly with the expertise that we have in our Public Works Department and the number of signs that they install over the course of the year, this is a minimum request and would take a minimum amount of time to assist under that particular strategic plan direction.
Other discussion or comments? I mean, I personally am concerned about the cost of having county employees do work like this without recognition, but I think that the signs are valuable and the trail work on the trail is also valuable. Any further discussion on the question of the adoption of the motion as presented to approve the installation of the signs, the way it's written in your agenda? All those in favor? 8-0, and the motion is adopted. Last one, stars. Is someone willing to move that we receive that information? Okay, Councillor Kapitanek has moved. We accept the report from stars for information. Is there any discussion on that? Sorry?
Finish off.
Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion to accept the stars report for information, all those in favor? That is carried 8-0. The motion is adopted.
Mr. Reeve, members council, we have it on our docket here that 8.11 was not approved under consent agenda. Am I mistaken?
No, I have it as approved on the consent agenda.
It was.
You had it listed on that other sheet
Yeah,
that gets prepared in advance, but that it was not one that was read out because there's a clear motion on the there's a clear recommendation in the agenda that we receive it and table it for further consideration at the August 31st meeting.
thank you very
That's
much. We
already
missed
taken
that.
care of.
That was too early in the morning.
Well, it was such a nice clear motion that we just boom, she got. So 9 point, so I don't know why this. I don't think this is lining up necessarily, but anyway, 9.2, the calendars are the next item. Let's talk calendars. Everybody catch the breath. We're going to go around the table. I'll start with Councillor Wallach is ready, so let's start with her.
Monday, the 14th of August, Healthcare Retention Committee.
We have council workshop that day.
And on the 17th of August, a regional economic development and tourism meeting at 9:30.
Okay, so that's the regional economic development and tourism at 9:30 on the 17th. And the healthcare retention on the 14th, which probably no one can go to because we've got, we're previously engaged. Moving around the table, Councillor Holland, do you have anything to add? Councillor Mins, Counselor Gerlich, do you want to add anything to the calendars? You can turn the computer if you want, it'll be easier. Counselor Anderson. It's on his screen side. Your birthday's coming up? Do we want to put that on the agenda? We could lower the flag? No.
Okay.
Counselor Anderson.
September 11th is a Athabasca multiplex meeting at
Yeah.
9:30 a.m.
9/11. Okay, Counselor Capitanic. Okay. Well, we're working around. Counselor Cromwell.
The 17th, Thursday at 5 p.m. and the 23rd at 5:30 p.m. I have an ACPA meeting.
The 17th at 5 and the 23rd at 5:30. ACPA meetings for Counselor Cromwell.
And the 31st at 3 p.m. is the Northern Lakes College first meeting of the new semester.
That's of August, 3 p.m. Northern Lakes meeting.
August 6th at 5:30 p.m. and August 20th at 5:30 p.m. ACPA meeting.
August or
August. Oh, September. I'm going backward. Thank you.
Okay, September 6th. And I'm sorry, what was the other date that you said? September 6th and September.
Yeah, I did them all backwards. I gave you the August dates in September and August. 'Cause I'm smart like that. I'll update it with Miss Blair and have her when she sends out. the
And those ones are, okay. Are there anything else to add to calendars? Counselor Gerlich's birthday too. It's, you can turn it back if you want. All right. Counselor Capitanic has made a motion to accept the calendars as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the adoption of the motion to accept the calendars as amended, all those in favor, count as 8-0, and that item is passed.
So scary.
Okay, we have the added item, which I have listed as 10.1 on my agenda. It is the Athabasca County Assessment Review Board. This came to you today by now, given that we've been here, I don't know, I lost track, but quite a few hours, probably close to 11. You might have had a chance to read it. CIO, can you give us a 30-second summary of what we need to do here?
Yes, update on my CEO briefing yesterday. When I got to my office, I looked at the emails. I had an email from the clerk for the Local Assessment Review Board, who has put forward 5 names for potential panelists for the rehearing of the appeal that was the judicial review that was granted to the county. And so we're asking council to approve the pool of 5 panelists, from which the clerk will select 3 panelists to constitute a newly struck local assessment review board to rehear the matter of an assessment appeal by 175311 Alberta Limited.
Councillor Gerlich would like to make a motion. Councillor Gerlich has made a motion to approve that council approve the recommended motion to approve a pool of 5 panelists submitted by the Richard Barnum, the review board clerk, from which he will select 3 to constitute the newly struck local assessment review board to rehear the matter of the assessment appeal by 175311 Alberta.
And
Is there any discussion?
further, Mr. Reeve, just to share with you, I was asked for dates in the last 2 weeks of September when this council chambers might be available for the appeal board to hold their rehearing. So
Perfect.
it's
coming.
moving forward much quicker than I thought.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands eagerly springing forth. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve the recommended motion, all those in favor? 8-0, what do you know? And the motion is adopted. We are at item number 11.1I, the Regional Multiplex Society Board. Put that on.
Thank
The
you.
floor is yours, Councillor Anderson.
I don't have a written report for the meeting on Monday. Gosh, that seems like a long time ago now. But we did see the first draft of our 2022 financial audit and asked for revisions to be made. So they will come back to our meeting in September. So we're looking at doing that. And multiplex budget we're going to start and hopefully nearly complete the budget process for the multiplex at the September meeting. So we are on track for getting that budget in time to line up with ours here.
Thank you for that report. By this standard breakfast seems like a long time ago. If you would like someone to make a motion to accept the reports as presented, Councillor Gerlich has done that. He was fast. Councillor Cromwell, he beat you even. On the question of the adoption of the motion to accept the reports, all those in favor? 8-0, and that motion is adopted. 12.1, it would be in order to take a motion to enter into closed session. That is Councillor Cromwell on the adoption of the motion to.
Mr. Reeve, I don't know.
I think we want to just touch on it quickly and then we don't have to belabor that one, but I think a moment's. I'm going to disagree with you on that one and we're going to charge you. On the adoption of the motion to enter closed session, all those in favor? Cole, thanks for spending a brilliantly day with us. I thought I